Welcome into another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. This episode, we're going to discuss how to win a bigger bracket pool or how to attack it to at least be competitive in those bigger bracket pools. When there's 50, 100 people, you got to do some different things to make yourself competitive. So we've got 3 tips we're going to throw out there for you guys to consider. First one, Cody, I'll let you start with this one, but being different is really a big key in some of these bigger bracket pools, right? So you're looking at like national champion. How can you be different, but still realistic in terms of picking your national champion?
Yeah, I think being contrarian is extremely important, especially when it comes to picking your national champion. Obviously, there are always the extremely popular teams that maybe that you like a lot and you want to pick them as a national champion anyway, which is fine. But like just looking at the 3 or the 2 favorites, I guess right now, I mean Duke is being picked in 25% of brackets on ESPN to win the championship, and Florida is being picked in 21% of brackets to be the champion. So it doesn't really give you much leverage, and you need to be so much better in every other pick than everybody else. It just doesn't really give you that great of a chance of winning. It doesn't. And to be honest, like the implied odds of these teams to win aren't really in that area. So I do think just being different, especially like I guess the spot that I would pick this year to be different, be a little bit contrarian, is by like picking a team like Houston to win the national championship, or even Texas Tech down the board, like teams that you see value outside of like those top 3 really give you a leg up as like in a bracket of, I mean, in a pool of 100, I guess 100 people. I mean, you're going to have, I guess we'll just go off of the numbers. Like it'll be 8.8% of people are picking Houston right now. That just gives you a far better chance than if 25 out of 100 people are picking it. So just picking spots, even throughout like the first rounds and second rounds in your brackets, like just picking leverage spots, picking contrarian spots is really important. And just like a couple other spots that I would point out to being different, and spots that I've really considered, there are vulnerable 2 seeds. So in those second round matchups, I think in a bigger pool, it's very important that you can take a swing in those spots. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be teams like Michigan State and St. John's that I'm looking to kind of fade throughout my brackets, like putting Kansas in the Sweet 16, putting Marquette or even New Mexico in the Sweet 16, I think gives you a leg up if you end up being right there. And it could be anywhere in the bracket. If you're low on a team, that's a high seed, like take a swing early. And I think it gives you a really good chance to have a leg up on everybody else.
Yeah, it's definitely really important to be different. But the one thing with that, right, like you want to be different, but you also, very popular thing to do, people like to fall in love with every underdog, right? They're like, I'm going to pick all the 12s and all the 13s and all the 11s, right? And that's also not a very good strategy either, right? So don't fall in love with every underdog, right? Pick your spots. Look at it a little bit more analytically if you're really trying to win it, or if you're not really into the analytics side of things, just pick a couple that you really like and kind of stick to those, right? But you don't want to pick all of them, and then when all 4 12s lose and the 5s are all in the Sweet 16, you've kind of like already packed your bag on winning it, especially if you're not different in the national champion category. So I think being different is really important, but also making sure that you're not falling in love with all the underdogs to be different from everybody else.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. And sometimes like the leverage spot is taking the 5 seed instead of the 12 seed. Like you see a 12 seed being picked in 35 to 40% of brackets, but they're sitting there as a 8 or 9 point underdog. Like it's definitely, you're gaining more leverage by taking that 5 seed. You have like the implied probability is just way higher in order to take, like, I mean, I guess a spot would be like potentially Oregon. I don't have the exact number on how many people are picking Liberty. I would assume they're fairly popular, but maybe picking Oregon gives you a little bit more leverage there. A few other spots would be potentially, I mean, Yale is definitely the most popular 13 seed by a lot. So I may be going not necessarily contrarian, because obviously A&M is being picked in over, I believe they're being picked in like 65% of brackets right now. I think it's like the probability wise, I think it's a little bit smarter to go with A&M there. I personally like Yale in that spot, so that's not one that I'm going to go with. I think there's a lot of upside with that team, so I'm not going to go there. And then, I mean, obviously, it's important to like the most important part of your bracket is having the right national champion. So don't like take a swing down at like a 7 or 8 seed that you don't really think has like a great chance of winning. So I I just think overall, like you obviously you need to have the right champion, but being different and picking a team that has upside that you like more than the market, or you like more than everybody else likes, I think is the right way to go.
Yeah, definitely. And then, first two tips, you want to be different. Second one, don't fall in love with all the underdogs. Third tip, taking more of I'm going to use a term, then I'll explain it, but more of like a daily fantasy strategy. So for people that out there that don't know it, right, you kind of want to have this shell of your bracket where you have a core group of teams that you're pretty confident in, right? Similarly to like daily fantasy, where you want to pick like the same few players and then mix it up in kind of like some swing games, right? So that's how I think you need to approach these in these bigger pools, right? You don't want to make 3 brackets and in all 3 you have like a different final 4, right? You need to be confident, especially in like your first round picks. The ones that maybe you're 50-50 on, you mix it up, but the ones that you're very confident in, you don't want to give up points just for the sake of being different, right? So make sure you're kind of keeping that core group of teams that you're picking. And then in those 50-50 games, maybe even like 60-40, that's where you consider taking a swing and going the other way. But you're just going to give up too many points by like guessing which way to go with certain ones. And then, they all end up kind of in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone falls victim to this. Like if you make 2 or 3 brackets, you make your first one with your strong positions, and you're like, but what if I'm wrong? And then you just end up taking everything the opposite in the second bracket. I mean, I've fallen victim to that before when I was younger. I'd make 10 to 15 brackets. I'd make one and be like, oh, now I have to do the complete opposite to make sure I cover all my bases. You're never going to cover all the bases, because there's what? I mean,
nine
there's really
quintillion, I think 9 quintillion different options.
Like, you're never going to have a bracket that looks even close to clean. Like, you can have like, I don't know, you can end up having all the Elite 18 or 7 of the 8 Elite 8 teams, which is like really, really good, obviously. But yeah, if you have a position, you got to stick to it, especially if you're only making 2 or 3 brackets. Like, if you're making 15 to 20, sure, like pick 10 that have like with your super strong position, and maybe 5 that are a little bit off the wayside there. But yeah, like you said, like if you have a strong position, you have to stick to your guns. Maybe like obviously not putting that same team in the final 4 in all 3, because it can really put you in a bad spot. But like having that team go fairly deep in every single bracket, I think it's a smarter thing to do.
Right. I mean, you can't have Florida going to the national championship in one bracket and then losing to the 16 seed in the next bracket, right? Like you're just putting yourself in too vulnerable of a spot, in my opinion. So definitely important to kind of stick to your core. But those are really the 3 tips we wanted to go through for you for kind of a bigger bracket pool, right? So to run back through them, be different, right? Especially in the national champion. Don't be picking these national champions that are going to be 25, 30% picked. Take more of a strategy of not falling in love with every single underdog, right? That's the popular thing to do, but don't fall in love with all of them. And then 3, make your picks based on your strong positions, right? Hold true to those. Pick the teams to go deep that you really truly believe. Don't try to vary too much from those, and more so change your picks in those 50-50 games. So those are our 3 tips for winning a bigger bracket pool. Hope these help, and enjoy March Madness.